You're out of family busbiness. My parents sent a voicemail. I just replied understood. 48 hours later 72 missed call and their world collapsed. They didn't say my name. That was the first thing. The voicemail began with my mother's voice. Chris rehearsed like she was reading from a script. Hi. We've made a decision. We're restructuring Rhodes Manufacturing. Effective immediately, you're no longer part of the business. You'll be hearing from our attorney. Then silence. Not even a thank you. Not even a Vivian. It was always my name on the invoices, on the balance sheets, on the refinancing papers, but not on this message. I played it again slower, then once more, just to be sure I hadn't missed a second message, something warmer tucked behind the first. There wasn't. My name is Vivian Rhodes. I'm 38. I've been with Rhodes Manufacturing Group since I was 21. That's 17 years, 17 tax seasons, 17 Decembers without a full vacation. The company carries my family's name, my grandfather's name technically, but I was the one who held it upright when it started leaning. And now I was out, not with a conversation, not with a meeting, just a voicemail. I sat in my kitchen in Seattle, mug still full of coffee, but gone cold. The sound of the refrigerator was louder than usual, or maybe it was just the silence pressing in behind her words. My father didn't speak in the message, but I knew he was there. I could hear his quiet exhale after she said attorney, a soft punctuation to their decision. His name is Graham Rhodes. My mother's Elaine. They built the company together after my grandfather passed, but it was my hands, my hours that kept the gears turning. They made a decision together. I could have called them back, asked why, begged for some part of the truth. I didn't. Instead, I opened my laptop, found the email chain with the lawyer I'd met at that boring finance conference 2 years ago in Phoenix. In the message, I didn't explain. I didn't ask for advice. I just wrote, "It's time. Let's talk options." Then I hit send. The first time I walked through the Rhodes Manufacturing, I was 21. My shoes were too clean, my suit too formal. I remember one of the line managers joking that I looked like I'd gotten lost on my way to a bank interview. He wasn't wrong, but I was eager, naive, and stubborn enough to learn. My grandfather, Richard Rhodes, had started the company in 1967 with one welding machine and a handshake. He passed away just after I finished college, and the company was passed to my parents, Graham and Elaine, 50% to my father, 30 to my mother, and 20 set aside unspoken for when my older brother, Zach, decided to join the legacy. He never did. Zach preferred startups and co-working spaces. He said metal fabrication was too dusty for someone with vision. He moved to Austin, failed upward 3 times, and eventually came back to Oregon, not to the factory floor though, straight to the strategic direction office. Meanwhile, I had stayed. I started in procurement, moved into payroll, took night classes to understand supply chain logistics, then became the one they called when the books didn't balance or the loan paperwork needed rewriting before morning. No one said thank you, but they stopped questioning whether I belonged. My mother used to tell people I was the numbers girl, like I was still 12 and doing her checkbook at the kitchen table. "Viv keeps us all grounded," she'd laugh. "Don't know what we'd do without her." Funny thing is I believed that. I lived in that sentence for years. I wore it like armor until the year I pulled a second mortgage on my house to keep the payroll running when 2 key clients defaulted. I never told anyone, not even my parents. I just sent the funds under a shell LLC so it wouldn't look like desperation. I called it stabilization liquidity in the quarterly report. The next quarter when things evened out, I overheard my father telling a board member, "Zach made a smart call on that invoice strategy." Proud of the kid, Zach hadn't opened QuickBooks in months. I swallowed it like always. I told myself it didn't matter who got credit as long as the company stayed afloat. That was my role. Not the name in the paper, but the name in the emergency file cabinet. Over time, things shifted. My access to high-level planning meetings started fading. My mother said I was overloaded already and should focus on what you're good at. Then came the updated org chart. My name wasn't on it. I asked about it. Elaine smiled, touched my arm, and said, "Viv, you know we value you, but this is just a visual. Don't overthink it." That was 2 years ago. 1 year ago, I noticed my headshot was missing from the company website. The About page listed Graham as founder, Elaine as president, and Zach as executive vision lead. There was no CFO, no mention of finance at all. I took a screenshot, not because I needed proof but because part of me still couldn't believe it. I had become the invisible gear, the piece that only matters when it breaks. I stayed anyway because somewhere beneath the silence I still believed they'd see me again. That all the years I kept them afloat counted for something. That maybe, just maybe, blood still meant belonging. It didn't happen all at once. That's the cruel thing. It wasn't a firing. It wasn't even a fight. It was a slow subtraction. One folder at a time, one shared drive permission quietly removed, one group thread I suddenly stopped seeing. I noticed it first when I went to update the vendor schedule and couldn't access the Google Sheet I had built from scratch 6 years ago. Access denied, the screen said. I thought it was a glitch. I emailed Zach. He replied, "Oh, yeah. We've consolidated finance ops into a different workflow. Nothing urgent." I asked to be looped in. I never was. A few weeks later, my badge didn't open the second-floor conference room. Elaine said the system had changed, and she'd check on it. She never did. One by one, the parts of the company that had once passed through my hands now moved without me. Faster, messier, but no one seems to care. Then came the annual shareholder packet. For the first time, it arrived late and printed, not emailed. My copy was missing key schedules. The charts were different. The language was softer, more forward-facing. I recognized Zach's tone all over it, but what caught me most wasn't the numbers. It was the signature block. Elaine, Graham, Zach. 3 names, not 4. I checked the official documents. My ownership was still there, 40%, but on every memo, every proposal, every policy shift, I had vanished. And this time, there was no refrigerator to drown it out. Just absence, just blank space where I used to be. They didn't argue me out, they just made me optional until I wasn't anything at all. I thought of confronting Elaine, I thought of saying, "You once told me I was the glue," but then I found the PDF version of the restructuring notice, the one sent to legal. I wasn't supposed to see it. At the bottom next to the signature lines, I saw the name listed under "initiated by Elaine Rhodes, President, Mother." The same woman who once held my head when I sobbed over a missed quarterly target. The same woman who told me, "Viv, we couldn't do this without you." She had signed the document that said, "We no longer need you." I didn't respond, not to the packet, not to Zach's memo, not even to the voicemail. What would I have said? "You forgot me." They hadn't. They erased me. There's a difference. For a few days, I waited out of old habit. Some piece of me still of hope someone would follow up, ask if I was okay, say it had been a misunderstanding, that they'd fix it. No one did, and that's when something shifted quietly. Not like a storm, more like a door clicking shut behind you. You don't hear the noise. You just feel the air change. I opened the old Gmail thread, the one from Phoenix 2 years ago, a boring finance conference in an even more boring hotel. But I'd met a lawyer there, Janet Lynn, from a boutique corporate law firm that specialized in private equity transitions. We'd exchanged cards. Nothing serious, but I'd kept her contact. I typed a short message. Just 5 lines. No emotion. No backstory. "Janet, I'm ready to explore options regarding my 40% ownership stake in Rhodes Manufacturing. There have been internal changes. Let me know a good time to talk. Vivian Rhodes." Her reply came within the hour. "Understood. I'll loop in our team. Quiet diligence first. No alerts." That phrase stuck with me. Quiet diligence. It felt like a language I finally understood. While they were restructuring me out, I was preparing something else. Not revenge, not even justice, just exit, but not on their terms. I started gathering records, emails, financial transfers, old QuickBooks backups, the unacknowledged personal loans I'd made to float the company through tough quarters. Everything I'd ever done to keep Rhodes from crumbling. All the contributions they never listed. My folders were full of them. Spreadsheets, PDFs, bank confirmations, a paper trail they thought I'd forgotten. I hadn't. I printed them all out, labeled each one, color-coded the years. It took days. I worked at night with nothing but the desk lamp and the low thrum of Seattle rain against the window. I didn't feel angry. I felt accurate, like I was finally balancing the books, not for the company, but for myself. Janet and her team reviewed everything. We discussed structures, buyer profiles, how to do this cleanly, quietly, and legally. I didn't tell anyone, not friends, not even my assistant at work. They had taken 17 years of presence and condensed it into a single voicemail. I would take that silence and make it expensive. We didn't meet in a conference room. We met in a corner booth at a quiet restaurant in Bellevue just across the lake from Seattle. No logos, no paperwork on the table, just tea, conversation, and confirmation. The man across from me introduced himself as Daniel Meyer. He was polite, understated gray sweater, calm tone, no pitch deck. His firm specialized in acquiring minority stakes in mid-size family businesses, especially one showing signs of transition turbulence. That's what he called it, transition turbulence. I called it abandonment. Janet had connected us quietly, legally, precisely. Daniel didn't ask me to bash my family. He didn't need to. My data had spoken for me. The cash infusions, the off-book payroll rescues, the overlapping loan guarantees I had covered for my personal assets. He nodded as he flipped through the binder I'd prepared. Color-coded, tabbed by year, with copies of the QuickBooks reports that no longer matched what the board now claimed. "You were the stopgap," he said simply. They leaned on you until they didn't need to anymore or thought they didn't. I said nothing. Just watched the steam rise from his cup. Over the next week, his firm ran their own diligence. They requested access to board minutes, partnership contracts, equipment lease schedules. Most of it was public record or accessible due to my standing stake. What they found wasn't clean. A line item marked strategic reinvestment traced back to a failed expansion project in Texas. A location Zach had personally backed and Elaine had championed over $800, thousands in unreported losses tucked behind the soft-coded budgets and vague language. Another report flagged duplicated payments to a marketing agency, physical address, a shell, most likely, or a favor, or worse. I didn't press for answers. I didn't need to. I had what I needed. Within 2 weeks, the purchase agreement was finalized. My 40% stake, valued fairly by a third-party assessor, was transferred in full to Daniel's firm. No drama, no board vote required. The operating agreement, last updated in 2016, had no right of first refusal clause. I had every right to sell. We signed the papers in a small downtown office neutral ground. The table was polished maple. No family crests. No Rhodes legacy quotes on the wall. Just signatures. Just silence. After the funds cleared, Janet drafted my exit memo. I didn't read it twice. Instead, I opened the original voicemail from Elaine just once more. I listened all the way through. "You'll be hearing from our attorney." They had meant it as a warning, a wall, a dismissal. It ended up being a door. I forwarded the message to my archived folder, then I sent a new email, short: final transfer complete. All communications to be directed through counsel. No regards. No closing sentiment, just closure. And for the first time in 17 years, I closed the Rhodes folder on my desktop, and didn't save changes. The first call came at 6:12 a.m. I let it ring, then silenced the second. By the time I'd finished my coffee, there were 16 missed calls. By noon, it was 47. The next morning, 72. Zach tried every number: my cell, my office, even Janet's direct line, which she ignored. He left voicemails, each one more frantic, less coherent. On the third day, I picked up. Not because I wanted to, but because I was curious what panic sounded like in his voice. Viv, you have to undo this. Please, you don't understand what's happening." He was out of breath. Background noise sounded like someone pacing on tile. "They froze everything," he gasped. "The investor, your buyer, they're requesting a forensic audit. They're saying there are discrepancies. Viv, they're going line by line." I let the silence sit a second longer. "Then that sounds like standard due diligence, Zach." He made a choked sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. "You don't get it. They're going back years. Flag the Texas reports, the vendor contracts, even Mom's restructuring memos. They found gaps. Viv, they found things that could look bad or things that are bad." I asked, voice calm. He didn't answer. "You have to help us," he said. "Finally, you have to talk to them. They'll listen to you. Just tell them it's all fine, that we're clean." "I can't do that." "Why not?" I leaned back in my chair. "Because you said I was out." He went quiet. "I was told I'd hear from your attorney," I continued. "Instead, my buyer heard from yours, and now your company has a new stakeholder with questions that I no longer have to answer." "Viv," his voice cracked, "it wasn't supposed to go like this. Mom didn't think you'd actually what?" He hesitated. "Actually leave. Not like that. Not sell your shares. Not to them." I waited. "You were supposed to fight for it," he said low. That made me pause because for a moment he sounded almost honest, almost like the kid I used to sneak popsicles with after school in the break room. "Before we grew into roles, we never chose and became people we couldn't recognize. You wanted me to fight," I said. "So you could be the one who forgave me when I lost." He didn't deny it. There it was, the unspoken arrangement, the setup. They'd erase me, and if I reacted poorly, rage, demand, beg, they'd keep control. And if I stayed quiet, they thought I'd come crawling back, but I hadn't done either. I'd walked out the side door and locked it behind me. "You could fix this," he said one last time. "Just one call." "No," I said. "You fix it. You're the one who said I wasn't part of the real decisions. Now you are." I ended the call. He called back. I didn't answer. Janet called 10 minutes later with an update. The investors' audit team had officially launched a compliance investigation. My former title was flagged in multiple filings, but omitted in recent reports. Legal exposure was likely. In short, they were in trouble. I felt no joy, no anger, just stillness. Like, I'd finally stepped outside the storm I'd been standing in for 17 years without realizing it. A few days later, I received an email from Elaine. Not to apologize, just one line. "Can we meet privately? No lawyers." I didn't reply. I printed the email, slid it into a folder, labeled it after. And just like that, the collapse wasn't loud. It wasn't a bang. It was quiet. Like a building falling in slow motion after the last support beam is quietly pulled away. I didn't block them. I didn't need to. Zach stopped calling after the audit became public within the local business network. Elaine switched to emailing once a week. Vague professional always signed, warmly Mom. Graham never reached out at all. I forwarded everything to Janet's office. Her paralegal responded with templated replies. I never saw the contents again. It was easier that way. Some part of me had expected the silence to feel like grief. I braced for it like a second storm behind the first, but it never came. Instead, there was a space I hadn't felt in years. Not loneliness, not sadness, breathing room. I stopped waking up with my jaw clenched, stopped checking my phone every 5 minutes. I began having weekends again. Coffee that stayed hot, sunlight through the windows that didn't feel wasted. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, my calendar was mine, not filled with board prep, not crisis control, not fixing someone else's mess while being told I was lucky to be involved. Just stillness. And in that stillness, I finally understood something. They didn't cut me out because I was weak or inconvenient. They cut me out because I made it work, because I had become the part they could never control and never fully credit. So they erased me. But here's the thing about being erased. It doesn't make you disappear. It just makes you harder to manipulate. The package arrived on a Thursday. No return address, no card, just a brown padded envelope sealed carefully, my name printed in my mother's handwriting inside a photo frame. The same one that used to sit on the console table in the Rhodes main office, the one near the front lobby. In the photo we were standing in front of the old warehouse, me, Zach, Graham, Elaine, smiling like we'd all earned the same place, like we'd built something together. Back then, I believed we had. But now looking closer, I saw what I hadn't seen before. The frame had a new chip in one corner. A hairline crack ran through the glass right across my face. Not shattered. Not intentional, just worn like time itself had rubbed me out. I didn't fix it. I didn't hang it up. I didn't even keep it on my desk. I placed it in a drawer, closed it without sound, and with it closed the last open door. No rage. No need for closure. They had said, "You're out." And I had answered, "Understood." That was enough. Sometimes the final word isn't something you say. It's what you choose not to. And sometimes the most honest picture of a family is the one they try to return to you because they can't stand to look at it anymore. If you've ever been quietly written out of the frame, not for what you did wrong, but because they couldn't stand how much you held together, you don't have to explain. Just leave one symbol below.